Hello. We are getting started. Today I'm going to switch it up a little bit. So for the first, to begin, I'm going to talk about how I paid off my student loans. And then I know last week we were talking about the book Willmaker Pro 2017. And so I will go into that. But I wanted to kind of start with just candid information about how I paid off my student loans. So I do have a post that kind of describes exactly what I did. And so I am going to share that in the comments section so that you can review that information. I'm also going to provide some tips and share that with you as well. So I wanted to start off by saying that Finance Friday is a live discussion that we have each week. I started my blog. Now it's actually been 7 years. So 7 years ago, I started my blog, cleverlychanging.com. And each Friday I would talk about finance and the journey I was on to pay off my, all the debts that I had. And so for the most part, I've been very successful in doing that. And while I'm on my journey, I wanted to share some of the tips that I've learned with other people. So for the first 6 years, Finance Friday was exclusively blog posts on cleverlychanging.com. But this this last year, I've decided to add a live video component to the blog, where on our Facebook page, definitely if someone has shared this with you, please like our Facebook page and comment. Let me know if you find these topics helpful. If you have any topic suggestions, please feel free to share those as well. If it's information that I haven't personally dealt with, I am happy to research or find someone who would be better suited to answer your question. And so I am going to go ahead and jump in and go ahead and tell my story. So when I started college, wow, it's so hard to believe it's been 17 years ago. So 17 years ago, I started college. I was only 17 years old. And I had scholarships, but I didn't have, my parents didn't put money aside for me to go to school. They just assumed I was an intelligent kid, I would get scholarships, and it would be paid for that way. Well, I went to a private college, and so my private school was not fully paid. And so I had to come out of pocket for various things. So a lot of times when you think about college and you think about a person's college experience, you typically think, oh, those tuition costs. Well, when you go to college, you find out very quickly that your education is much more than just tuition costs. You end up paying money for books, for food, for housing, for clothes, for just a variety of different things that you may need. And so just having money for tuition isn't going to cover everything. And so for me, I often struggled to find a summer job. I just had some really bad experiences, and I did not have family members or connections with people who were in a network to give me a chance and give me a job. And so I often during the summer, I didn't have a job. So that first registration fee was always a challenge for me. And so I quickly had to kind of find a way to stay in school and pursue my dreams of getting an education and not be forced to resign, where a lot of people who start school and can't pay for it, they sometimes have to drop out. I did not want to do that. And so I had to take out loans in order to stay in school. And so there are different types of loans. You have your subsidized and your unsubsidized loans. And so your subsidized loans are loans that you can take out that are not accruing. Wow, it's been so long. So basically, you have several types of loans, and some of the loans, often they would ask my parents to take out loans. My parents didn't. My mom, I was raised by a single mom, and she did not have any credit. So she actually was never able to take out any loans for me on my behalf. She just didn't have a credit history, and so she wasn't able to do that. And so I still had to find a way to take out the loans. And so I remember that first time going into the business office and sitting with the business office director and talking to him about, how do I go about staying in school? And he told me that I could take out a loan on my behalf if my parent signed information or wrote a letter basically stating that they weren't, the reasons why they weren't eligible to take out a loan. And so I did that. So long story short, by the time I finished I was in college for 3.5 years. I was a double major. By the time I finished college, by the time I graduated, I had accrued about $26,000 worth of debt. And I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed by how much debt I had come to just the paper that they give you that says this is how much money you owe for your education. It overwhelmed me. And so I wasn't really clear on what I was going to do after college. I didn't have a job lined up. I never had any great internships. So I definitely advise youth and college students, get an internship. Definitely start lining up things while you're in college so that when you're done, you will have more choices and more options. So what I ended up doing when I was in college, my senior year, on the board, I saw some pamphlets, and the pamphlets were talking about Peace Corps, and they were talking about AmeriCorps. At the time, I was very attracted to the Peace Corps because I love helping people. I love giving of myself and of my time to make someone else's life a little bit easier. And so I thought it would be a good fit. However, it wasn't the best fit to go to another country at that time when I graduated from college. So I ended up also applying to AmeriCorps. And AmeriCorps is where you serve here in America. So it's very similar to Peace Corps. There are various organizations in AmeriCorps. So just because you hear someone is in AmeriCorps doesn't mean that they're serving the same way I did. For me, it was like a year commitment to serve underserved communities. But there are different AmeriCorps programs. The AmeriCorps program that I participated in was AmeriCorps NCCC. And I was set to serve out of Denver, Colorado, and I had an amazing and fantastic experience. The biggest draw for me to join the program was the fact that I would earn some public service hours. I would also earn scholarship money. Well, it's not really scholarship money, it's an award. And the award can be put towards future education, or it can go towards education, past education. And in my case, I had already finished college, and so I decided to put that money towards my past education and down onto my student loans. And the beautiful thing was I would receive that reward, but also while I was serving my year of service, my interest that I was accruing on my loans would be paid by AmeriCorps. So the service organization would pay the interest that had accrued while I served. So it was a fantastic experience. And if you know any youth that is wanting to take a year off and not go directly to college, or wanting to serve their country after college, then I definitely recommend AmeriCorps. Mainly because it's an opportunity to try new experiences. You learn. I served in a variety of different jobs. One of the jobs that I would say meant, I guess, so much to my growth and just provided me so much education was when it was right after Katrina. So while I was in AmeriCorps, Hurricane Katrina devastated the Louisiana and Mississippi areas. And I was given an opportunity to work for the Red Cross and help so many different people. And it just meant a lot to me. A lot of the organizations that we worked at were nonprofit companies that needed extra help. And so many of my peers and my friends, we learned how to do a variety of different things. Like, I know I had one job where I was tiling floors. One job was teaching kids with special needs how to ride horses. One job was just teaching, helping the Red Cross provide service to the families who were evacuees from Louisiana. And so that was a tremendously heartwarming experience for me. And so while I was learning different skills and doing different things, I was given an opportunity to start paying my student loans back. And so I would say that for me, that experience was invaluable. Now, when I came out, again, like I mentioned earlier, I had about $26,000 worth of student loans. And so my service award, I believe, was only for about $8,000. And so in addition to the $8,000, I believe they also paid, I'm pretty sure they also paid the interest that had accrued. So that made the service award a little bit more, but it didn't cover everything. And so after I finished my year of service, I needed to find something else to do. And sure, I could get a job. I applied for different jobs, and I worked at, retail, and it wasn't fulfilling because here I was with a degree. I was doing something that I didn't love, and I wasn't that interested in it. And so I also at that time was thinking about applying to law school and what I was going to do for grad school and how I was going to further my education. And so one thing that I immediately knew was that when I was going into school, grad school, I did not want to have even more debt on top of the debt I already had. And so what I did after I put all of my service award onto my student loans, I said, I need to get a good job. And I started to research organizations that would align with my values and things that interest me so that when I was doing the work, I would enjoy it. And so I found a job that I loved and that I enjoyed. And so I started to put a large sum of money because generally you get paid every 2 weeks. So I started to put a great percentage, I would say about 40% of my check onto my student loans every time I got paid. And so by doing that, I was able to pay off all of my loans in about 3 years. And so I monitored my loans online. So I think it's very important that when you are in school, that you find out how much do you actually owe. And so you also need to be taking time. I did a work study program in college, so that I worked about 20, I was taking about 23 hours per semester. So I would take a large load and then I would work in my free time. So I really didn't have a whole lot of free time. I just worked a whole lot. And so by doing that, even while I was in school, it helped to lessen the amount of money I had to take out for student loans. And so what I did once I graduated from college, I did the AmeriCorps program, and then I did the student loan, and then I would pay down like 40%. And I would advise young people to, our college students, it really doesn't matter. Once you take out that loan, start paying what you can. Don't wait until it's due. In my experience, after my freshman year of college, I took a semester off. And so when I graduated, usually they give you a 6 months grace period. But because I had already taken that 6 months in the one semester I didn't go to school, the first half of my sophomore year, I actually, I no longer had a grace period after I finished college. And so I had to go ahead and pay those back immediately. So immediately, when I first came out of college, I did not have to pay them immediately because I applied for forbearance, where my loans would not be due. I wouldn't be penalized for not paying the minimum amount each month, but they would continue to accrue interest. And so I went ahead and just did what I could to pay those off. By putting aside as much as I can. Now, I know that for a lot of people, you cannot put 40% of your income onto a student loan. It's just not feasible. And it may not be feasible because you're living on your own and you have a car payment, a house payment, and you're trying to live as well. And so my thing is, after I graduated from college, I stayed with my sister, and so I didn't have to pay a fee to live with her. So she didn't charge me room and board. And so for some people, going back to stay with your parents for a little bit of time, that's actually going to help you pay off your debts sooner. And so I would definitely advise or just recommend, if you can, definitely, get a roommate, try to just reduce your expenses so that you can pay as much as you can on your loans. Because once they start accruing with the interest, it begins to increase rapidly. Another thing that I did after I put my loans in forbearance was I refinanced and consolidated my loans. That's a little bit tricky. Some people would probably advise people not to do it. It's kind of up to you. When I came out of college, the interest rate that my loans had was a lot. And so once I did a little bit of research about the amount, the interest rate itself, I realized that if I refinanced, I would have a smaller interest rate to pay. And so once I found a company that I trusted, that I was willing to consolidate with, I went ahead and reduced that interest rate. Because by reducing that interest rate, I save on the amount that's increasing every month. And so I think it's very important for you to consider that. Definitely look into refinancing, try to get a smaller interest rate and go from there. Another way that other people, I didn't do it personally, but there are a lot of loan forgiveness programs, especially if you go into a field, a healthcare field that is serving underserved communities. And so if that is your passion and something that you want to do, often with your jobs, they have loan repayment programs. The only catch to those programs is that you will have to stay with that job until the amount that they've paid for your education has been repaid. So let's say, they pay for your grad school. Maybe, in order to stay with them, in order for them to pay, that means that you have to provide a level of commitment of about a year to 2 years of service. And so that means that once you get that education, you are, dedicated and committed to staying with that company unless you're willing to pay back that money to them. So they're not just handing out free money. You are actually working for that money and letting that company know that you are investing your time into serving them and their organization. So that is something to keep in mind. Another tip that I really give people who want to pay off their student loans is pay more than the amount due. This is true for any loan that you take out, whether it's credit card or a mortgage, whatever money you borrow from a bank. Definitely be willing to pay more than you borrowed or more than that minimum payment due a month. Because if you're only paying the minimum due, then your balance is growing. And you don't want the balance to grow because you want to decrease the balance so you don't owe that much. All right, so the last thing I did to help me pay off my student loans was I itemized deductions on my taxes. I think that a lot of times people don't realize what you can do to reduce the amount of money that you have to pay back in taxes. And so by researching that and just, maybe having your own business on the side and really investing in yourself and understanding how taxes work, then you're able to get more money back, possibly. And if you get money back, then you can put a large sum onto your student loans. So that's what worked for me. That's how I paid off my student loans, is really just having that mindset and that dedication to say, hey, I want to pay back my student loans, and this is how I'm going to do it. So my thing is, whether you choose to take the route I took by joining a program like AmeriCorps, which is from, I believe it serves the population of 18 to 24-year-olds. So if you're in that age range, you can join. And I believe that's the case. Again, there are other AmeriCorps programs where I don't think they really limit the ages. So that's pretty open-ended. So that's something to consider. But it even may be, for some sort of services, it may be up to 35. But again, it's going to be flexible. You just kind of have to research that on your own. But just be willing to be flexible in how you want to make money in order to pay those student loans back. But I think once you have a plan in place and a commitment internally to say, I want to pay it back, and this is how I'm going to do it, little by little, then you will be able to pay it back. So I'm here to say, after 3 years, I paid it all back. I mean, it was a triumphant experience. I was excited. I felt empowered. And so just like I felt empowered and I was able to do it, so can you. So if you all have any questions about anything that I mentioned today, please feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below. Remember to like my fan page, my Cleverly Changing fan page on Facebook, but you can always go to my website, cleverlychanging.com, and let me know that you visited. Let me know that you watched our Finance Friday Live, and again, share suggestions, comments, and let me know if you appreciate this service. So happy Friday to you. I look forward to talking to you next week, and I wish you the best. Bye.